Hello, Shadow Era community, and welcome back again to State of the Era. We are, as always, the podcast presented by the A1 Alliance to bring you the best Shadow Era discussion around. You are, of course, hearing the distinctively sexy voice of NinjaDucky. Today we'll be talking a bit about the World Championships, which are currently in progress, and what's going on with those, and we'll also be discussing strategy for players that are new to the game, how you can kind of take your game to the next level and really get into the competitive scene, and we'll be continuing our discussion that we've been having for the past couple of weeks about the game's allies. Here to talk with us today, we have iClipse.
Hi, guys.
We've got GreatOldOne.
Hey.
Auto7.
Hello, everybody.
And our guest today is CwhitTastic.
What's up, guys?
All right, so to get us started, let's learn a little bit more about our guest today. Cwhit, where are you from? How long have you been playing Shadow Era, and what is your favorite deck of all time?
Okay, well, I'm from California, USA. I've been playing for actually 3 months to the day. And my favorite deck of all time, I don't have very many decks to pull from because I'm so kind of new. And I never really played any of the earlier versions, so I don't have any of those cool 2 SE or Shadow Energy stories with the heroes and things like that. So I would say my favorite deck so far has been Portal Magia, definitely. It's I've had some good success with it, and it's fun for me to play.
That's definitely a good deck, too.
What are actually the best and worst matchups for that deck?
Best matchups, I think that it does pretty well versus, non-Portal Magia. I think that it's better than Control Magia. And then, actually, it's kind of funny, a bad matchup for it is Victor. Because
with the traps.
Yeah, the traps destroy the portal, and then also when I finally get a fatty down, he can use his ability and then set it down to 1 health and then heal off a Soul Seeker. So it's terrible versus Victor.
Yeah, and put down a new trap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, I can agree.
I didn't even really think about that, but that would suck pretty hard.
And isn't Lance also a pretty hard matchup with the ankle breakers and stuff and the black barbs?
Yeah, I think it depends on obviously what the Lance plays, but if they play with black garbs and ankles, it's a little bit harder. But ankles isn't too much of a problem, but the black garbs are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Have you ever encountered in this meta Lance with Dagger of Unmaking? Because I think that it would be worse for Portal Magia.
I have actually, and it was in a quick match. And it actually worked out pretty well for me because it was kind of a specific scenario, but I had 8 resources and I had a Bella in my hand and a portal out. So I would do Bella
Shadow 4 damage.
Yeah, and then I just drew 2 cards and did 8 damage. Still had my Bella in my hand, so I guess it would kind of depend on the situation.
That's kind of the same thing as King's Pride plus Christopher. You know, when you have Dagger of Unmaking out, it just turns. Normally, Dagger of Unmaking would be good.
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're at 8 resources and the King's Pride is already on the field, you can do what is it? 24 damage with 1 ally. Oh no, only 4 times because
you can only replay him 4 times because the Dagger of Unmaking will run out of durability.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
That's a ton.
Well, actually, Dagger of Unmaking, isn't it used more in Serena decks than it is in Lance decks?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Dagger of Unmaking I've seen it more in those decks.
Why would you play Dagger of Unmaking in a Serena deck?
Well, but
why not put Ankle Breaker?
Well, but they did run Ankle Breaker, but because they wanted a hero that attacks every turn, and so they had Ankle Breaker and in addition other Dagger of Unmakings. I think it was something like 4 Ankle Breakers and 2 times Dagger of Unmaking or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that Dagger of Unmaking is a bad weapon. It's
a great weapon. But on Serena specifically, I mean, Ankle Breaker it's way better.
You still run 4 ankle breakers either way. It's just a question. Yeah. It's sort of a question between, do people run an extra 2 or 3 weapons, or do they run 2 or 3 lilies to bring the ankle breakers back? But then, do you draw the ankle breakers soon enough? And blah blah blah.
The fact is that Lily sounds a little better because Serena has so many items that she can use and utilize in good ways. You know, black herbs and maybe some ill-gotten gains.
Yeah, okay, but the problem with Lily is the fact that it actually costs a lot to play. It's hard to play a Lily and a weapon in the same turn. Yes, you have card advantage, but you can get card advantage through other ways as well.
Yes, that's true too.
So I've seen Lily actually in a lot of rogue decks in general, but I'm not impressed with it actually.
Yeah, we're gonna have a long discussion on that later.
Yeah.
That's true. We are. All right, so let's dive in. Before we get started with all of that, the World Championships. It's ongoing. It's kind of a big deal. What are you guys seeing out there now that round 1 is over? What have you guys seen? What sorts of strategies have you used, and how successful have they been?
Well, what I've seen up so far is a lot of control decks. I don't know if that's the same with you guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely a lot of control decks.
I mean, I haven't seen any gimmicky death race decks or stall decks or so. Not up so far anyway.
I have played with one Rust deck. It was a guy who I faced. He was using a Banebow in match 1 and a Ras Eladwin in game 2 with Birgittes and Chris and Aldon, and after that just burn all the time and, trying to win like that with some quick early damage and then just burn to the death.
And did it work out?
It did work out in the last, so I had a loss over the 4 games. But it was kind of nice in the last one because he started first and he had only 6 cards, with a perfect beginning with Birgitte, Puen, and Aldon. And against Portal Magia, it was really hard to keep up because he ended up having 6 or 7 shadow energy. He could just burn my allies when they came out and continued with burning.
Yeah.
No, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, especially you were using Magia, you said, huh?
Yes, I was using Magia.
Well, especially as Magia, you don't have a lot of health and you have no healing, so yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up if it starts wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys saw out there up so far.
I didn't play it at all. I mean, but just for people who doesn't exactly know how it works. So can you give me like a 1-minute brief of how the rounds are going? It's like you lose once and then you lose the whole tournament, or
no? It's a Swiss tournament style. So right now round 1 is just over, and everyone had to play 4 games, 2 games with the same hero every time, and you couldn't use the same hero twice. And then you get points for how many wins you have, and then you're ranked in a point system.
Wait,
and
it's
then,
Swiss?
Yes.
With how many players?
256.
Oh my god, that's insane.
Less now. But, yeah.
It will be a 7-week Swiss tournament, and the top 30 players advance.
Wow, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the biggest event that has ever been run for Shadow Era, so that's pretty exciting right there.
Yeah, I'm not envy. I'm not jealous in GDC who has to organize this. I mean, that's a lot to organize.
Well, he's doing well right now, I think.
I agree. I think GDC's done a great job keeping this whole thing together. So what kind of decks do you guys expect to see going forward in the World Championships based on the matchups that you've played so far? Do you expect that everyone's going to react to the control meta, or do you think it's just going to stay the same?
Yeah, I think we're still going to see a lot of control decks. There may be some exceptions. For example, if you know your opponent is going to play a few certain heroes, for example, if you know he's going to go either a mage or I don't know, a Moonstalker or something like that, then you can tech specifically for that, even with a gimmicky strategy. For example, a rush deck or something that can do damage really quick and then just burn to that. I think that could happen if you know what's going to happen, what your opponent is going to bring. But if you don't know that, I think we'll be seeing a lot of control decks in general.
So you think control deck is the safer play?
Well, it has the least bad matchups in general.
Yes, the truth is that Rust decks have some auto-loss cases, especially when you play with heroes that can survive for too long or just can stall or hide for too long. So I guess most of the players that are going to advance will just have the secure choice of playing a control deck. Not a really slow deck, but just a deck that can survive and withstand some early damage, even if it happens.
About auto losses, do you guys think that the tournament and the meta right now is a bit about rock, paper, scissors and being lucky with the hero you bring?
No, if I should say no, I don't think that so much. I think that after the first days and where there were certain heroes being played too much and the second days where other heroes were played too much, I think that the meta has reached a point where there are many, many viable heroes and not so Rosambo system with rock, paper, scissors. Yes,
but
there are...
Why then? Why are so many people going 2-2 versus each other? I mean, I think a lot of those people, but I'm not actually sure, so don't hold me on these words. But I think a lot of these people won 2 games in a row and then lost 2 games in a row just because of the hero they chose.
Yeah, there are heroes with weaknesses. There always were, and there always will be. But it's not like rock, paper, scissors anymore. That this class beats the other class and then gets beaten by the third one. I think it's more complicated now.
I think that what actually happens in the meta right now is that every hero was built to have certain strengths and weaknesses, but the result of that is that there's at least one nightmare matchup for every deck you can build. Like, a really good example is Banebo. Banebo's a really great hero, very solid all around, extremely strong, but if he fights almost any competent elementalist deck, he's just at a huge disadvantage all of a sudden.
Yeah, I agree, and it's with a lot of heroes like that. I think. I mean, Banebo is a very viable hero for a lot of matchups, and so is Lance. But if you play Lance, then I know if I play Lance, I don't want to face a Zeladar, for example. Especially a Zeladar with some item destruction that'll. So if you just play Leyline Nexus on your ankle breaker or on your Spell Eater Binds, then often you're just dead because of the matchup. And even though Lance is a very good hero and can win all matchups, if you tune him for a general purpose, he'll lose some very specific games. And yeah, that's what I mean with rock, paper, scissors. I mean, I know from advance that if I'm gonna play, if I'm gonna face a Zeladar, that I'm in trouble.
Cwhit.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this?
I think that I would agree that it's as a little bit rock, paper, scissors, just because of the fact that there are very bad matchups for certain heroes. Like, I know that I've just kind of scouted out some fun games and watched some of the other round ones from different players. And I won't say specific players, but I'll say that I saw a random Dark Claw versus an Aladwin, and that was very unfortunate for the Aladwin.
To say the least.
So I would say that there's not so much of a rock, paper, scissors element because it is balanced, but I think it still plays a part, and you can always be unlucky with your matchup.
Yeah. I also think that when choosing a deck for the World Championship, it's very important to know what your bad matchups are and play on that. For example, the Banebo example you gave, it has a bad matchup with Elementalist, but you know in advance that Elementalist is not a likely hero that you're facing, so it's often a good hero to go with.
That's true. And actually, I think an interesting discussion to have at some point is that the heroes that we consider to be tier 1s are the ones where their bad matchups are not popular, such as with Banebo and Lance.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But
I agree with that. And it's often because of that certain heroes become more popular because, for example, the Lance example that I gave, Lance at the start of 1.5 was really one of the most played heroes, but now you see people bringing counters to him, and in general he's played less now. For example, the Zeladar I gave, Zeladar wasn't played at all at the start of 1.5, and now you see him all over.
Yeah, no, actually I think that's a little inaccurate, though. I think in the very beginning of 1.5, you saw a ton of mage decks. And I think that what actually happened was you saw a ton of mage decks, and then you saw Lance and Amber show up to counter that, and Lance beats Amber a lot of the time, so then he became very popular.
Yeah, and now
It's shifting to a more anti-Lance meta right now.
Yeah, I agree. The question is then what is tier 1 right now, or isn't there a real tier 1?
Still mages. I still believe mages. So strongest plus in Shadow.
Yeah, well, but even as mage, you have to know what your opponent is going to bring, because if you know he's going to be a Zaladar, for example, you better have a lot of item destruction in your deck, Leyline Nexus, and a lot of. Well, I don't know actually.
I always put Leyline Nexus in my. I think that if I tell you why I think mages are the strongest, because if you are not teched against them at any way, then you are most likely to win as a mage. That's what I think.
See, I don't know about that, because as I think I've said on almost every episode so far, I play mostly mages, but I find that in competitive tournaments and things, I'm finding myself picking not mage a lot, because there are certain matchups that are popular right now that I am afraid of. And
because people will tech against them.
Well, but it's not generally mages. For example, the Zaladar, if I play Zaladar, I know that in let's say 90% of my games versus mage, I'll win, even though my deck isn't specifically tagged against mages.
Really? With the Zaladar against mage?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude.
We should play. I mean, maybe I play like a different kind of mage, but it's.
Oh, it's on. It's on.
Maybe against a control mage, maybe. Okay, but if you have a Death Ray Saladwin, what do you do as a Zaladar?
You play Soul Reaper, and then the Death Ray Saladwin runs out of cards and runs out of burn, and then you rape her.
Well, actually, I don't even run Soul Reaper, because I use Dimension Ripper, and I don't want my opponent to have my Soul Reaper, so I don't run it at all.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Dimension Ripper is also a very bad thing for mages.
I mean, I can steal your burn with my card, and in the same time, what you get of me. The only thing that I wouldn't like you to get is my mind control, but other than that, I don't know, some allies or so isn't actually a problem if you get those of my deck.
I mean, I faced Zaladars, and I mean, it's not a very good matchup for a mage, but I don't feel it's like a bad matchup.
Well, it always depends on how you're playing, because in this meta, it's not just one way to play a deck. In certain heroes, in all the heroes probably, it's you can play Rush, you can play Stall, you can use different kind of archetypes. So we talked about Lance previously and his problems with Zaladar. For instance, I don't have usually problems when I face a Zaladar with the deck that I use, but I can see that when someone uses Ravens, probably has more problems against the Zaladar. Or when you are in Mads and you try to rush against the Zaladar and you find that he's using Soul Reaper, then probably you run out of steam. But if you play a control deck and you just flood the whole board without him having an energy discharge, then I guess that the Mage is not going to run out of burn, because he relies on allies mainly.
Well, Otto, a little bit a specific question, but how exactly do you run your lands deck so that you don't have problems with Zaladar, or is that a secret?
It's not okay. I don't have a problem to say, because anyone can check with my games. I mostly like the Earthen Protector and Aeon combo.
Well, I use those too, but the problem is often that if I play an Earthen Protector, and even if I haste it, it'll just get mind controlled, and I take a lot of damage because it has 4 attack.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. If not necessary, you just don't rush the Earthen Protector. You play Knuckle Breaker, and then you play Aeon. So he has to use the mind control on Aeon, and then you bump out with the Earthen Protector. And in fact, if you are sure that he's going to survive from the enemy attacks from allies, you just don't haste Aeon at all. You just throw him there as a bait for the mind control. He gets mind control, and then you throw the Earthen Protector with haste. Get a card from your ill-gotten gains, get another card from your Ankle Breaker probably, and then if he gets mind control too, okay, you have 2 cards, he has 2 less mind controls, and he's out of the game.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I often lose. I use Earthen Protector and Aeons, and I often lose versus Zaladar. Maybe it's just the way I play them.
Yeah, it's different archetypes. Do you use Sage and Assassinates?
I do.
Because if you kill the early allies of Zaladar, and he just has to use his ability on a lance and probably a shade, if he doesn't kill your allies too, if you make sure in other ways that you don't have too much early damage before playing your regular engage, I think that it eventually ends up that you overdraw him one way or another.
Well, but it's often when the Zaladar destroys my ill-gotten gains with shrieks that I'm in trouble. Maybe it's just because my deck is low on draw, and that way I have a problem. But usually it's just because the Zaladar can trade his ability often for 2 cards or even only 1 card, and I can't trade my ability for 1 card. I mean, not always, because I need to have an ally. And then it's actually the Zaladar that's outdrawing me. Especially if with Ankle Breaker I attack something and he plays how's it called again? The card to draw when killing an ally of yourself.
Ill-gotten gains?
No, with yourself.
Oh, Sacrificial Lamb.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, often the Zaladar just uses Sacrificial Lamp, and then he has more cards than me because it's an unilateral draw engine, and he just gave away a useless ally anyway, like a brute with a 0 attack or something like that.
I think it's also worth noting that Zaladar is probably one of the heroes that can contain the largest number of archetypes. So just saying Zaladar isn't good enough to know what matchup you're facing, because there's about 1,000 ways to make a Zaladar deck.
Yeah,
that's
okay,
good.
that's a very good point.
Totally true, yes.
So okay, the problem, the archetype of Zaladar I have a problem with is Zaladars that use some big allies, but not a lot, but a lot of control and especially item destruction. If I see a lot of Leyline Nexus and ill-gotten gains in the same deck, then I'm often in trouble as Lance in general.
Yeah, well, I think because Lance relies on the ill-gotten gains and Ankle Breaker, that if almost any hero, but especially Zaladar, if they have the right item destruction, then there's no way for Lance to win because you need those.
Yeah, okay, yeah, probably that's just the problem.
I agree. Against heavy item destruction, Lance is always going to have a problem.
So yeah, just in general, is Lance then a bad hero to go with versus any hero with a lot of item destruction? For example, how does it go if a Lance plays versus a Priest who has 4 times destroy arms or the now focused prayers and keeps destroying your draw? Would it be the same problem?
Well, it depends, because the priest has to find a way to destroy Lance's items on time. And it's very different when we say about Zana or we say about Jericho. It's very different archetype and gameplay in this meta, I think. Because I guess that probably both of them carry 4 retreats and 4 jasmines and probably some sandworms and the King's Pride, but the point is that if they don't find their item destruction early, they just cannot rely on having a tidal wave on everything, because they don't know if Lance is going to rush a Raven, so probably destroy the Sandworm in 1 hit, or if he plays with Ethan Protector, or if he plays with Winnie Rush and he will just distract with a Jasmine. It's very, very different ways to play it.
Yeah, I actually think that the game is now getting to the point where it's you can't necessarily just say, what happens in Lance versus Jericho or Zaladar versus Aladwin, because that's not enough information. There's just so many different decks that people could be using with those heroes now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, I agree actually, but there are still some heroes that don't have a lot of archetypes, so it's not a general thing you can say, I think.
I think after the next set comes out, then or expansion, expansion comes out, it will be like, then you will actually have to specify like which deck. I mean,
you will no longer be using Aladwin. You will be using Rush Down Aladwin or Freeze Tempo Aladwin or something like that.
Oh, that's actually a cool evolution. I'd like to see.
Yeah,
I agree.
The truth is that I cannot think now of a hero that has only one way to be played and not another totally different way.
Well, I mean, you can play every hero in more than one way, but I mean, really viable ways.
Yeah, there's usually
Yes.
one best way. Usually, it depends which
I
hero.
think. Well, I think that the only hero I can think of right now,
Maybe Victor, I don't know.
Victor or Banebow, would be the two that come to mind that don't really like you. There's some tweaking that you can do, and some people can play some different cards. But I think in general, every Banebow deck at least is pretty similar when they're viable.
Yes, but it's not only Sisyphus archetype of Banebow. There was still the old archetype of Banebow with Winnie Rush with some snakes and maybe Bloodlust and Bazaars inside. It's still viable, you know. Okay, I should not
I
give
guess
too many secrets away.
I guess I just haven't seen that Banebow, but
Yeah,
I
me
will
neither.
take your word for it.
Priests in general also look a lot alike. Okay, there is the Zana deck with Ghostmaker and so. Okay, that's true. But I haven't seen that yet with Jericho.
I think also you'll see the heroes who have card pools that favor longer games have more variations because when you're going for a shorter game, it's all about efficiency, and there actually will be like one most efficient possible build. But when you start to go longer, then there's a lot of different ways that you can.
Yeah,
mix
and
things.
also further thought on that is that if you plan on going with longer games, you can get away with certain cards that you only have 1 or 2 times in your deck and get advantage out of them in late game.
Yes.
While if you rush, you can't use those cards because you have to use 4 times of them if you want them early. But sometimes that takes up too much deck space.
Yeah, probably I have King's Pride in my mind if you say the same thing.
I
Yeah,
was thinking
Right.
the same thing.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good example. I didn't have any real examples in my head, but yeah, okay, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Next
so let's move on then. So let's talk a little about new players to Shadow Era. Seems like as time goes on, we keep getting more and more new players jumping on the forums, and they're always looking for advice. So let's give them a little bit of advice here. We've got CwhitTastic with us here today, who is a new player, only been playing for about 3 months, who skyrocketed very early on, made it to the top 20. How long were you playing, CwhitTastic, before you made it to the top 20?
Well, I mean, let's see, probably about a month and a half or so, maybe, yeah, around there.
So
You know that
That's-
there are people who envy you right now when you say that.
Yeah, I am one
I
of
think
those right now. It's actually very fast that you learn the game because I remember when I started playing that it actually took quite a long time before I really got the hang of the game. I think I think I was playing about 2 to 3 months before I actually understood how the game worked. I mean, I wasn't really playing it every day, but just now and then, obviously. But yeah, well,
Depends
for
if
me
you
it
have,
went
you
really
know,
slow actually.
Depends if you have former experience with card games.
Yeah, I guess. And
Absolutely.
also, what I think that also helps is if you're on a computer, it's easier to get on IRC and visit the forums easier. I think.
Yeah, that's
At least from the start. I mean, I didn't know from Talk until up until I started playing Shadow Era on my computer, and then saw other people using a certain app for it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I can use that too, and then I bought it on my iPod, and now I can browse the forums through my iPod, but it wasn't initially like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So let's start this question off with CwhitTastic because he's the newest one here. But what was everybody's impressions of the game when you were a new player? How did it feel to you compared to other card games you played, or did you play other card games? What did you think of Shadow Era when you were first playing it?
Well, I had never played a TCG before, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But when I first, I was just kind of searching for a fun app to play, and I just liked the concept of these, monster human battle type cards with all these cool effects and heroes, and I'm also a pretty competitive person, so I was drawn to the game because there were ratings and rankings, and I could tell that there were different varying levels of play, which I thought was awesome. And I also liked the fact that there was a pretty active community. So, I thought it would be a fun game to get into, and that's why I kind of poured most of my free time into it. And yeah, those are my first initial impressions.
And did you learn the most from yourself and just playing, or did you learn more from the community and just talking to guys, or how did you learn the game?
Yeah, it's interesting that Gu, you said that former TCG experience can help, but actually I think that me not coming from another background actually made me stronger in this game quicker because I could easily be molded. So kind of what I'm saying is like I found some top level players. I need to give a shout out to Razy and C. Hansen from TJ right now because they were my mentors early on the game. And so I just kind of, bothered them a lot, asked them millions of noobish questions, and played with them a ton.
If you have someone to help you, then it's quite good. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you don't have former TCG experience, but if you have to learn, the game alone, then it helps a lot.
Well, I was just saying that because I've talked with several players who've come from, I think the game Magic the Gathering, and they have different ideas of certain cards. Like there's certain kinds of cards in Shadow Era that would be terrible in Magic, so they immediately overlook them. Like I think Retreat was an example. I think, am I right in saying that? NinjaDucky
I actually remember when I first started playing the game, I saw Retreat and I was like, oh, it's just a creature bounce. That's silly. And I didn't bother with it at all for like a month or two. And then once I started seeing other people use it against me, I was like, oh, wait, this is really good in this game.
Yeah, because it's a different game,
Yeah, because of the
Magic the Gathering. Yeah, in Magic the Gathering there was instant cards where you can play whenever, in your turn or in your opponent's turn. And there was a blue card that's called Unsummon, I think. And it does exactly what Retreat does, but it costs 1, and it's an instant. So then you look at Retreat and you think to yourself, and that's not such a good card, but in the current card pool and, when there are no instant cards, it's quite good.
I think that the other thing is that when you start talking about how Shadow Era is a very different game than a lot of other popular TCGs like Magic the Gathering, because it's so incredibly tempo based. You look at it I come from a heavy Magic the Gathering and Lord of the Rings trading card game background, and when I look at a card like Retreat, my first thought was that is silly. I'm spending a card and I don't get card advantage, and it doesn't do hardly anything for me, it feels like, just like Unsummon from Magic. But because tempo is so amazingly important in Shadow Era, that's a card that just gives you so much tempo.
Yeah.
And that's why it ends up being good. You misjudge things like that, I think, when you come from other games, whereas if you don't have that previous experience and bias, you wouldn't.
Yep.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think because of the tempo thing that Retreat is an auto-include. Often I just want to destroy things rather than bouncing it to my opponent's hand. For example, when I'm using a Priest and I have Tidal Waves, I don't always want to play Retreat because actually it'll just give my opponent more advantage because he'll have less allies on the board. I'm not saying that Retreat is a bad card in a Priest deck at all.
Well, no, I'm not trying to say that Retreat is an auto-include. I'm just trying to say it's way, way better than I thought it was. Like to give you frame of reference, when I first started playing Shadow Era, when I looked at Retreat, I thought it was the same thing as Unsummon. And in Magic the Gathering, people who play Unsummon would instantly be marked as you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, it was like a bad card. There were just... I think when you have 10,000 card pool that you can choose from, like in Magic the Gathering, or 20,000, I don't know how much they have now, then, you have so much... whatever. So you have so many options that some cards just become bad, even if they were like good at a certain point. And, this card wasn't good anymore.
Yeah.
You can't know. Maybe in 10 years from now, people will look at Retreat and they'll say, that's a bad card. Why would you ever put it in a deck?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's highly likely. If there is indeed, for example, a neutral trap card for 1 CC that bounces any ally up, for example. Or something like that. I don't know.
Amazing. A trap that retreats allies when they get summoned.
Yeah.
That would be so good.
Yeah, that would actually be very nice.
That would be amazing.
it was just a thought that I have, but cards like that will actually, in the future, make Retreat less good than it is right now. But I think it'll take a while. I think in general, the new expansions won't be super powerful cards all of a sudden. I think it'll be more subtle effects, more... Well, because Shadow Era is actually a very subtle game. It's not all these huge effects. It's getting small advantages over a longer time and trying to build that up and winning that way. So that's not... I mean, that's a very specific Shadow Era... well, I don't know how to call it. No.
This design of Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That.
Yeah. Going back to the new player thing, CwhitTastic, what was the first deck you started playing with, and what's a deck that you recommend to newer players?
The first deck I ever played with was an Aaaaand deck, and it was, I mean, this was the very end of 1.29, so it was really just a rush and burn and use Aaaaand's ability on the hero and kind of hope to win before your opponent won, the whole death race style.
Right.
So I think that I mean, rush is anything straightforward is always easier to learn. So like rushing or well, that's kind of the only thing I can think of because milling and control take a little bit more experience, and you need to kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think
that's pretty true.
Either rush decks or just straight up. Like, there are complicated heroes, I think, and there are some less complicated. I mean,
That's
I think
true.
maybe playing like warrior decks like Ember or Boris is easier than a Zalada or whatever.
Really?
I think.
I disagree, actually. I'm finding warriors very difficult to tune right, because there are a lot of different matchups that you have to.
Okay, maybe
take
in the
into
highest
account.
level, but if you're a new player and you have to start playing, against other new players, and you have to choose which one to play, I think warriors are like more straightforward.
Yeah, okay. Just 4 times Blood Frenzy and a lot of allies, and often you'll do fine.
Yes, that
okay,
could be.
that's true.
But I agree with iClipse about being too hard for warriors to make a tuned deck.
In the competitive level, yeah, I agree.
Yes.
But for new players, warriors, solid choice, you guys think?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Just
Even mages are very easy, just direct damage and allies usually.
Yeah, that's true. I think that mages are probably the most straightforward deck. If a new player asks me, hey, I have no experience with this game, I want to learn the ropes, what's the deck I should play, I would probably recommend a mage deck just because it's a very straightforward type of deck to play. Most of the mage decks you can build early on.
Yeah, I agree. My first deck that I actually played was also a mage deck.
Oh man, my first deck was a Zana.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. Hard. But
Yeah,
what did you think when you saw that ability and went for Zana? I mean, when I first saw all the cards, it was like, what's a good ability? And I saw, destroy something. Oh, that's nice, but heal yourself tree is not something that would...
I liked Zana abilities. I don't know. I thought it could have really nice like combos with like strong creatures, strong allies.
Oh yeah.
And I thought to myself, that might be a... Before I chose a hero, I went to the list of all the cards and I looked at all of them. Yeah. And then I decided, Zana could have some really nice combos, so I played Zana, but I moved pretty quick to Moonstalker, and then, I don't know, then Mages or Warriors, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think one thing that's interesting, let's go around real quick. What version did everybody start playing in? Because that, I think, has a big difference. I remember, I'm listening to Goo right now saying, Zana's ability, he thought it was cool because it might have combos with big allies, and I'm thinking when I started, she couldn't even do that. So I started in version 1.24. iClipse, what version were you in?
1.23, I think.
Otto, what version did you start in?
I have to remember, but I think it was 1.23 with Ladwin and Permanent Portal and Sandra. I think it was 1.23.
That's
but anyway, the version doesn't really matter when you start playing because you don't know the history of the game, and
Well, but it changes your perception of the game. So we're talking about how what you think of the game when you first start, and it's a big difference. Like, your first hero being Zana in 1.29 is a lot more reasonable than it would have been in 1.25.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
Me and CwhitTastic both started at 1.29.
Yeah.
And I would even say I almost kind of really started in the current version. Well,
How actually did you guys learn about the game? I mean, how the first time you heard of it, where was it?
For me, it was Total Biscuit. So he made like review, kind of first impressions on games.
Yeah, I saw that,
and he really, he looked at this game, and I was looking for a online TCG for at least 10 years. I mean, seriously, and I never found one that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
And when I saw this, I said, okay, I'm gonna give it a try, and I really liked it.
I found mine I searched a simple Google search like top free apps, and Shadow Era came up, and I'm glad it did.
Did it actually turn up with the top apps of? That's pretty cool. Okay.
I mean, it is a pretty sweet game.
Yeah. Yes,
it was number 2 a voted game for 2011, right?
Oh, I think it was only for Unity. Wasn't it only for Unity player or something like that?
I don't know. The site that I found that it just said that it was the number 2 game of the year for free wise. So yeah.
Okay.
When I downloaded, I just saw some cool images. It was Nishaven and some other images, and I said, "Oh, why not?" I always like games with priests and mages and like that.
Yeah, and especially if they're free.
Yeah, and it was free.
I mean, you don't want to try to buy something that you have no idea how it works.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
For me, the free thing was something very big for me to start playing. Otherwise, I probably would never have started playing this game.
For me, actually, the big draw was that it's inexpensive, because I am a really big TCG player, but I had to stop for quite a few years because it just cost so much money. So when I started playing Shadow Era, and I was like, this is a pretty cool game, but I don't really want to spend that kind of money again. And then I looked at the store and saw that I could buy booster packs for $1. My jaw hit the floor, and I was like, that's amazing.
I was the same. I was amazed. I mean, when I started playing Magic the Gathering, one booster pack cost around like $2 or $3, and now it costs like a lot. I don't know. It's like
I think it's $4 in the US here.
No, so in Israel it's like $10 for one booster pack.
Crazy.
Which is insane. I mean, I couldn't play anymore after it started. The price started rising. And
I don't blame you. That's insane.
Yep.
Even $4 is a lot.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Just stupid.
Well, but don't forget that when you guys are talking about physical cards, and if you have purely digital cards, that there aren't as many costs involved when
That's
and physical cards you can actually sell for money. I mean, they're actually worth money. I mean, if you have them.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, having low-cost cards is something logical to do when you only have a digital version of your game. So yeah, that's a good call, I guess.
Yeah.
And they weren't greedy. I mean, they put the merchant system, and they put stuff that helps you. Like
actually,
it's really nice.
I think being not being greedy is a very good business decision as well, because probably I wouldn't have paid as much money as I did right now if they were greedy. And I think right now I've paid at least $200 on this game, which is more than I've ever paid on any game. So being free actually got the more money of me. So yeah, a strange thing, but I think it's actually a very good business standpoint to have.
Yeah, I agree.
So if Wolven ever hears this, that's a good way to go in the future.
Good job, Wolven. Kyle, I don't know, whoever.
I agree. So, CwhitTastic, since you are our honorary new member superstar person, what would you say is the most important lesson you had to learn when playing Shadow Era, and what's probably the biggest lesson you think that new players need to learn to take their game sort of up to the next level?
Okay, well, I think the most important piece of advice or thing I learned that I could share with newer players is learning how to anticipate what your opponent will do. And I think for some of you guys, for some of you veterans, that's really an easy second nature type of thing. But when you're first learning, it's hard to be able to figure out, what to sack and what your opponent's going to do. And so the sooner a newer player can figure out, and possibly think 1 to 2 turns ahead, or know like, okay, well, he's probably going to play some kind of item right now, or an ankle breaker, or you can plan for things, and your game gets taken to a whole new level once you figure out kind of what's going on and anticipating what your opponent's going to do. And I think a huge key with that comes from actually branching out to different heroes. I know that once I stopped playing a certain hero and started branching out to different classes and different types of heroes and things like that, it really took my game to a new level really, really fast because I was willing to branch out. I was able to learn other heroes, and so I knew really well what was going on when I played that certain hero. I feel like you can't really master a certain hero or a certain class until you've played all the other ones too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
I don't know. I think mastering a hero, it's very possible without playing the other heroes. Even with my best deck that I have ever had, I didn't really know how to play other heroes, but still my deck was very good, so I have to disagree with that statement.
It helps, maybe?
Oh yeah, or maybe it helps.
Maybe
yeah.
it helps? Okay.
Well, but even if you haven't played the other heroes yet, if you have played a lot against them, you know what to expect anyway, so...
Yeah, well, if you play a lot against them, it always helps to have... to see the situation from the other side, I think.
Yeah, okay,
it probably also depends on how aggressive your hero is, because if you play totally aggressive hero, I think iClipse is talking about his Gwen deck, right?
Yeah.
Gwen was a totally aggressive hero. You just had to build up and kick your opponent's ass, so you didn't have so much to care about what he's going to play. But if the hero is very aggressive, it's what you're saying. You don't have to know everything from the beginning. But if you're playing a hero who is more controlist, you just have to know what you're going to expect. If someone is starting a lance now, who is a hero that has to build up and has to have some exact sacks against specific opponents, then he needs to know some things more. I mean, for example, Priest of the Light is a very good card to make Zaladar wait one turn more. But in the end, you see that he just dies in one hit. When, on the contrary, with Jasmine, that is going to survive unless a death match comes out. So there are very specific heroes that needs to be teched in some specific way, and others that are so aggressive that you don't really have to know your opponent's deck.
Well, but being aggressive doesn't mean that you play short games and that you don't have to know what to expect.
No, but it is when you are the one who is going to build himself up, and it depends on him. If, for example, the old Gwen didn't have to carry, isn't that right?
About what?
About what cards your opponent may bring, except for priests who had destroy arms and some very specific heroes.
Well, mostly there were general things you have to be concerned of.
Yeah, general things, right?
Like that. Human allies, or generally allies in general, were things you had to consider anyway.
I mean, I think the point is, though, that if you play a very aggressive hero, you don't have to sit there and worry about, okay, is he playing, does he have 4 Aldons or 2 Aldons in his deck? It just doesn't matter, because it's not going to affect how you play as much.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
But I think I pretty much agree. I think it's a very key thing to understand how the other heroes play, and I think that spending at least a little bit of time playing with those heroes can help speed you along that path. I think that's good advice.
I'm going to say something that is going to sound really funny. For the first 1 month, maybe even more, that I had downloaded Shadow Era, I was playing in the world map. I didn't even know that there was a you could just play with other guys. I just reached level 8, 9. I don't remember, and I had so much gold. And I said, there is I can play with other guys here. What the hell?
That's awesome.
So I had played most of the heroes in artificial intelligence, and I had quite enough gold to make some deck of mine. So it was really nice. I would advise someone who is very, very new to play on the world map, to just get the grip of all the heroes and learn the cards, both on his side and on the opponent's side, because the artificial intelligence now is, okay, it's not so strong as playing with a normal person, but it's very, very stronger than before. It's a good way to make yourself familiar with all the cards and get the gold to buy the exact deck that you're going to need for the quick games.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, I have to say to the new players who probably hear now that they should try not to sell any cards at all. If they are not going to pay for some gold really quick, and they just want to keep cropping gold from quick games, they should just stick to the cards they have now until they are sure 100% that they're not going to use them at all. Just like campfire stores or something like that.
Yeah, I agree, because sometimes you may end up going, Leyline Nexus, who's going to use this card? That's silly. And then when you get some more experience, you're like, oh, oops.
For example, guys who like werewolves, they are just so much popular when you enter the game. And so a guy has, for example, Eladwin, and he says, okay, Eladwin, she's so nice, and I win some games, but I have encountered those pretty nasty DCs, and I'm going to buy myself one of these decks. And he sells everything for the half price, and then he ends up with DC, and he says, oh, I cannot win so much as I used to. But I don't have the gold now.
Yeah, that's actually very good advice. I think I've sold at least a few cards that afterwards I was like, why did I sell that?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I sold a lot of cards.
I actually remember when I first started playing, I sold some King's Prides that I gotten out of booster packs.
It's huge.
Yeah, I was like, it costs 7. That's so much. I don't think I'll really use this that much. And so I sold 2 of them. And then later, when I tried to make some decks, I was like, that was dumb.
And you did have an experience from Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I sold the Dark Santas and Titan Oracle. I said, I thought they were really crappy.
I'm making a people's request that Ducky will not edit the part for me saying that he had an experience on Magic the Gathering before.
Okay, fine. I had experience with Magic the Gathering before, and I still thought King's Pride wasn't that great when I started. There's my deep, dark Shadow Era secret.
Oh, there's if it's cool, there's one more thing I would want to say to newer players.
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
I think a huge thing that helped me too was watching tons of games. Like I remember going right away to the rankings page and looking at all these people in the 300s, and then just searching their IGNs and watching their games and just seeing what they did in certain situations, and just trying to reverse engineer their decks sometimes. So if as a newer player, if you're not watching games, then you should, because it really helps. And then also you can watch your own replays too, because watching my own replays and seeing, oh, dang it, I should have done that, or you can not repeat the same mistakes, which really helps too. So, yeah.
That's good advice too. I think.
And if you have someone who's a good player that can help you while you play, it helps a lot. I mean, I remember when I just joined A1, then I used to play, and Otto used to help me sometimes in the game. I mean, I asked him advice in the middle of the game. I told him I have this, and this in my hand, and what do you think I should do? And he told me why, and it helped me improve a lot. I mean, I improved insanely in a very short period of time only because of this.
Yeah, it's especially the why fraction is very important there. Mm-hmm. Because you have to understand why you did certain things. I mean, you can watch top players, but sometimes you don't see why they do something. and if someone tells you why it is, it's
when they
often
when they
very
play
helpful.
when they play the card, it is so obvious that it was the right card to play. But the point is what they sacked before and how they managed their hand in order to be able to put that combo out. Because most of the people will say, "Oh, he's freaking lucky," because at the exact time he had the exact card that he needed, but they will not know that he made all the other choices and all the other sacrifices in hand and sacrifices of allies in the board, so that he will be able to have the exact card in the exact time, so that he will reverse the board control.
Yep.
And that also goes back into the skill of thinking ahead, knowing, you shouldn't sacrifice this card on turn 3 because on turn 5 you're going to need it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think we can go to the next topic then.
Yes.
Yes.
So, rounding out our discussion, we've talked about, cheap allies, we've talked about really expensive allies, but one category of allies that I feel like gets overlooked a lot is the 4-cost allies. And I find this very interesting because some of them are quite good, but it seems like they don't get as much love as the other costs, and you even see them not as frequently as other price points for allies. Do you guys think that that's a true statement, and why do you think it is if you think so?
I sense that it's going to be the first time that we're going to agree about the best 4cc ally. About the first...
I'm not sure.
No, I don't think we're
I'm
going
not
to
sure.
agree.
But we'll
Okay.
Try me.
We will see. We will see.
We'll see. But do you guys think that these allies are underused? Do you think we should see more of them than we do, or do we see less of them than other costs?
I think we do see less of them than other costs, but I think the main reason is because to be honest, they're just less good than the 3cc and the 5cc allies.
Well,
most of them.
it's more they are the support kind of allies.
They are more situational, I think.
Yeah, no, they're just support allies. Often they don't give you that much board advantage, and also the very good items that often the draw engine or cards like that come out at 4cc as well. And so you don't have the time at the first 4 turns to play the 4cc ally. So it's often a support ally that's played on later turns. For example, Lily is an ally that's always played on later turns.
What about an ally like Kurt though? He's clearly not he's a board control ally.
Yeah, well, but he
he's just not...
He costs 4, but has at the same time he has the same stats as a 3-cost ally, and the 3-cost ally on top of that gets a good ability. For example, the Jasmine, and okay, the Kurt has also an ability, but it's not. It's more a specific ability. It's only useful versus fireballs. I mean, what else? I don't really know what else.
They are just not
okay,
as
the
good as the other allies.
dots as well, but in general.
Yeah. In early days of 1.5, Kurt used to be one of my favorite allies to haste with Lance's ability, because it was all about Eladwin back then, and he was the only early ally of humans at least that he would hit for good, and he would survive Eladwin's ability, and he would give such a good board control. Of course, then the meta evolved, so Kurt got out of my decks for good.
So yeah, I don't say that Kurt is a bad ally, but I just feel that the 3cc ally is just better, and for the rest, the other 4cc allies, at least for human, are more the support allies. I mean, Marshland is a support ally, I guess, and then Tainted Oracle is especially a support ally.
Yeah, you won't put them in any deck. I mean, you just, if you build a deck and you think of an ally to put in it, you won't just put any of the 4cc allies because they're good. You only put them in if they are, if they synergize well with your deck. Otherwise, just there's no point because they don't do anything almost.
Yeah. Another reason for 4cc allies not being so much popular is that allies that cost from 1 until 3 are the early allies that give you the board control before the hero abilities come. then when you know that your hero ability and the opponent's hero ability will come, you just cannot invest so much in that time's board control because everything may change. Mages have mages and priests have board wipes. Lance has and rogues generally have very good weapons. Warriors also have very good weapons and draw engine. So you just have to invest on later game, and you have to put your draw engine out, because the point is that if you don't put your draw engine out from turns 1 until 4, then turn 5 comes and you either have a fatigue to put out, or you have nothing at all. And even if you do, if he dies, then you are probably with one card in hand. And it's the crucial curve of the game where you have to put your strategy into an actual plan for the rest of the game. Unless you are playing a really rush deck, you have to control the game for later. And since controlling is the main point of this meta, it's the crucial curve where you have to decide what you're going to do in the rest of your turns. And since we're talking about the favorite allies, I have to say that my favorite 4cc allies is definitely Tainted Oracle, because he's a mid-shield in the field. There are times that I may choose not to sacrifice him and just keep the deck till it is necessary to sacrifice him to get the cards. And anyway, it's my favorite 4cc ally. There were times in some decks that I could use Chimera. I liked it with my Xalander decks, and maybe with some versions of Banebow. And there were some versions of me using Marshall Sandlin with Lance, or maybe some Warriors. But generally, Tainted Oracle is the 4cc ally I would take with every deck I pack.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of allies also... Tainted Oracle perhaps is the most general ally that helps in the most decks, but I don't agree that it's the best ally. For example, for me, a Lily Rose Cult is a very good 4cc ally that I often would prefer over Tainted Oracle. And another ally is Wolven Tracker that I also like a lot, especially in decks that can protect it. For example, a Moonstalker. I really like to have Wolven Tracker in there.
My personal favorite 4cc ally is, I agree with Otto, Tainted Oracle, because I find 4cc allies to be awkwardly costed, where they don't fit with the math of how I want to use my turns to play cards very well, except for that guy, because turn 4 playing something that's going to draw me cards is a very good play, and that usually is where Tainted Oracle fits in. He's going to soak up some damage for me. Even if he dies in the board control war that Otto was talking about, he gives me cards to keep me going. And other than that, I actually don't hardly use any of them.
Before 1.5, I actually didn't use any 4cc ally, I think. But after 1.5 came out, then, first of all, I saw Wolven Tracker, and I was really psyched about it. And I used it, and I liked it a lot at the beginning. But then when I realized how much of a target he is and how easy it is to kill him, then I don't know. I mean, I still use him, but I think he's not as good as I thought he was at the beginning. And then there was a time I used Marshland Sentinel with Lance, like Otto did, and it was very good. But I think eventually I agree with Ducky and Otto that Tainted Oracle is probably, the best 4cc ally I use. For the same reasons you guys said. I have no point repeating the reasons.
Well, it's the most general 4cc ally that's good in a lot of decks, so I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's the only ally, this along with Lily, and that is why I guess iClipse said about Lily. They are the only 4cc allies that they are actually going to do something, for sure, when they come out. And Lily is not so sure, because if there is no items, she may bring nothing out. But Tainted Oracle is the only ally, the only 4cc ally that's actually going to use his ability, no matter what.
No, it does matter. I think one of my...
if you cripple him, he cannot. But okay.
Or yeah, I think one of my most hated situations in the game is where I put Tainted Oracle in turn 4, and then my opponent puts turn 5 Dagger of Unmaking, and I just want to cry. That sucks.
So you guys are forgetting about my favorite 4cc ally, which is Bella, and Bella actually guarantees you a card, unlike Tainted Oracle.
Oh. Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
So Bella
Otto
is your
just got
favorite?
owned. Okay.
Well,
I
you got to
think-
remember he is a top 20 Portal deck player.
Yeah,
So
Magic.
once you throw Portal on the board, Bella skyrockets in usefulness because now it's 4 cost for 4 damage guaranteed and a card draw
Yeah,
guaranteed.
but
So
the question is if you need to say your favorite 4CC ally, or I think or the most like the best.
The one that you would take with every dex if you had to choose only one.
Yeah. So Seaweed,
if I-
which one would you?
If
Well-
I mean, if I was Shadow, I would still choose Bella because Bella still. I mean, Tainted Oracle only has 2 health too, and Bella's more of a threat than Tainted Oracle, in my opinion. But I think that I'm actually going to show a little love to Kurt here. I've been playing a lot and testing with Kurt lately, and I think he's. I mean, I know a lot of people used him in the beginning, like you guys were saying. But I think that he's actually pretty useful still, especially because I found he's useful for taking out like Molten Destroyers, which are pretty common right now, just because he doesn't take any damage from the burn or the initial attack on Molten Destroyer. And there's just, I find his survivability is really, really good.
I have a sense that you are talking again about haste, though. That you're using him with Lance.
I'm actually talking about using him with Boris.
Oh.
Yeah, he's cool to use because, especially late game, like with a King's Pride on a on a Kurt, it's pretty amazing because he has a huge attack, especially if you have allies now. You can actually get Kurt up to 7 attack with Alden and King's Pride, and he has enough health to survive a supernova.
Oh,
that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
But the point is, if you manage to keep an ally with 4 initial health on the field, wouldn't you feel really better to put a Martial Sentinel out?
Then, as opposed to a Kurt?
I mean, if you do manage to hold both of them outside, wouldn't it be totally superb to hold Martial Sentinel? I mean, Sentinel is one of the allies that if you cannot deal with him right away, he may really win a game for you. It's like
That's true.
It may be the only ally underneath 5 costs that may win a game by itself. This and maybe Wolven Tracker.
I think it would depend too on what hero you're using, right? Because I mean, Shadow Energy can be very, very crucial to your win scenario. So it depends on the hero. Like it'd be much more better. Much more better. That's good grammar. Much better in like a Jericho deck that you don't use the ability as much.
I also think it's worth pointing out that, you know, yes, you probably would rather have a Marshland Sentinel survive than a Kurt survive in a lot of situations, but Kurt is going to survive more often than Marshland Sentinel because a lot of the common ways like fireballs and Aladdin's ability and things, you know, don't work on him to kill him in one shot.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So speaking of Marshland Sentinel, though, guys, what do you guys think about Marshland Sentinel? 1 Shadow Energy to disable people down to 0 base attack. Do you think that's worth paying Shadow Energy for, or not?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, yes.
I think it definitely worth it. I mean, if I can pay, usually if I use my Shadow Energy, it's to either destroy something or, I mean, you can pay like 3 or 4 to kill an ally, and here you have to pay 1, and you basically kill an ally most of the time, so it's totally worth it, I think. If you can actually, you know, make him stay alive, but it's really hard.
Yeah, that's the big problem with him, keeping him alive.
Yeah.
Often I feel he's a good turn 5 drop along with a Birgit. Yeah, with a Birgit. I think that's a good drop to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Often on turn 4 he won't survive the next turn. Only if you started first and went very fast attack. I mean, if you have a turn 1 Chris, turn 2 Puin, and turn 3 Eldon, and then you drop a turn 4 Marshland, he can often do a lot of damage, but that's not the case if you go second and have not the board under control right now. So he doesn't help at that point, so that's often why people don't run him.
So generally the feeling I'm getting from our discussion is 4cc allies are being undervalued because it's a lot of resources to pay for something that might just die.
Yeah, well, especially early. For example, the Lily is a very good ally that are, in my opinion, is really worth the cost, but it doesn't help you very early in the game, and that's often why you don't see it a lot. It's more the ally you use on turn 8 or something, or later when you have something in your graveyard, and games don't always go that late, so that's also a reason why people see it less played than the more popular allies.
Well, as we said, they are more situational. You just have to use them in different scenarios.
Yeah,
Not
definitely.
like, Aldon or Jasmine or Molten Destroyer, which will always be good on the board. I mean, no matter when.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also that because board control is important to almost every hero, and that's why, and they help with that, so that's why they used more. The other 4cc allies are more utility allies, and that's why you see them less.
I've always thought that that 4cc allies have a weird balance issue with where they sit, because they need to be stronger than 3cc allies, which are some of the most important and crucial allies in the game, but they can't be as strong as like 5 or 6cc allies. And so it's very weird to try to hit a mark where you're making an ally that is significantly stronger than Jasmine or Aldon, but not as strong as Raven or Earthen Protector.
Yeah, that's the exact example of what happened in the pages and pages of arguments in the PFG one about Cobra Demon, which is a 4cc ally, and the initial plan was to be really strong, and it was really overpowered with some heroes. And what it ended up with is an ally that, in the current meta at least, has not so much utility. But I think that in the next expansion of the game, where Shadow Energy is promised to be used in many, many ways, I think that even Cobra Demon may see quite a big uses.
Well, I don't think it's going to be big use, but maybe a little bit more than it is now. I agree with that.
I just want to be, to think positive.
I think design-wise, the people who made the cards and the design team, they made a good choice with the 4cc allies. I mean, it's, as you said, it's really hard to balance them, and I think they made a good job with making them very situational, and I like it because, you don't put them in every deck, and it gives variety, I think, to the game.
Yeah, it is a surprise factor to see a Chimera in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, but also, I think it also depends. For example, I think it's possible to introduce 4cc allies that actually help with board control, whereas now they're just utility allies. For example, if you have an ally, I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. Say you have 3 attack and 6 health, like Raven, but no ability. That would be, for example, a good ally to have at 4cc.
That's kind of cool.
The ability of an ally is very important. I mean, the fact that Raven is 5cc is just because of the ability that's very strong.
Well, let's since we're starting to drift in that direction anyway, let's transition to the listener question. We actually had 2 people send in mostly the same question, but I think it's a very interesting question, and we should discuss it. What are things that you would like to see in future sets? Now, I realize that some of our crew members here are in the PFG, so you'll have to block those cards out of your mind. We're not asking you to break your NDA or anything. But what are things that are not in the game now, or for PFG members, I suppose, not coming soon, that you would like to see in future sets?
There's only one thing I would really like to see in the game, but I'm pretty sure it's never going to happen, and it's the instant cards. I mean, being able to use abilities and cards not in your turn.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to happen.
Something that's a bit closer to it than we currently have is, and what I think that could happen is, for example, neutral traps, or other than Hunter but class-specific traps. that could help with dealing with things in the other person's turn. So that's something I would like to see is traps as a more general card for other heroes as well. I mean, not like in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you play traps every turn, but well, something that's used a bit more than it's now.
Really? Would you like to see it? I mean, that would make hunters like really non-special, in my opinion. I wouldn't like to see.
Well, but hunters could still have the focus on traps. They could have more class-specific cards that return trap cards, or make them cheaper, or make them better, or whatever. But in general, I would like to see more traps. Yes.
Yeah, it's like warriors and weapons. You know, warriors have so many good weapons, but there is also Soul Seeker, there is also Ankle Breaker, who are great weapons. But still, warriors have the grip over weapons as a class.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Other things I would like to see are, for example, weapons that are very good as just pure attack weapons, but that can be buffed with that can't be buffed with abilities, and so they make good weapons. For example, a hunter weapon that can be buffed, so it wouldn't be overpowered on a Gwen deck, but at the same time would still be a powerful weapon on a Victor or the Shadow Hunter cards.
Like maybe where you could pay for a very expensive weapon that would just have 3 attack, right? Just it would just always have it. But then
or even 4 attack. But if it couldn't be buffed and it has a high cost, it wouldn't be that overpowered, and it wouldn't be the right weapon for Gwen, except if she wants to save Shadow energy.
Yeah, it would be a great weapon for Gwen to save it. You know, not just great as Soul Seeker, but a great weapon for sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I would like to see. And another thing I would like to see is, but that's for a very far future, is dual class heroes. So, for example, Rogue and Hunter hero that can use both cards.
Whoa, that'd be cool.
How can you balance that? I think that's...
Well, but you have a whole load of new heroes, and you have to balance those against each other, and it'll probably happen that the current heroes won't be played anymore, but I don't think it's a good thing to keep on playing with the same cards forever and ever. I think if you bring out new sets, some cards will become redundant, and I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as it's not that one set make all other cards redundant, but only 1 or 2 cards for each faction or each hero, then I don't think that's a problem. And
I would be scared to put dual class. I think that's, I don't know, that's impossible to balance. I mean, I would want more heroes. I mean, in general. I mean, if you can give every class a few more heroes, that would be awesome.
Well, I always thought that the main problem for balancing was, say, 2 heroes or 2+2 if you take factions 2. Having to find the correct balance for a card when it has 2 heroes of a faction and 2 others from the other faction to be utilized. It was very difficult. And I don't know. If it was just one hero with his cards and another hero with his cards, maybe the game would not be so complicated. I don't know if it would be for the best or for the worse for its interest. But I think that the main problem for balancing is that hero abilities affect in a different way some cards, and they may become overpowered in the future when the sets are much more than now, many more than now, and the cards many more than now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that I would really like to see in the future is building towards alternate win conditions, so that way you could have... Right now it seems like, board control is the entire game of Shadow Era, and I would like to see it start to branch out more. One specific thing that I can think of is I'd like to see a lot more mill-specific cards, because right now we have people trying to use mill strategies, and it's really slow and boring and painful, because they just literally have to sit there and survive until their opponent actually runs out of cards. Whereas if there were more cards in the game that did things like, take the top 5 cards of your opponent's library and put them in their graveyard, I would like to see more cards like that, so you could have alternate strategies to build towards.
Or shadow energy
you
manipulating.
Stole mine. That's what I was gonna say.
Sorry? Now it's all about stalling. That's true. And actually, mill isn't a viable thing you can do right now, but you can stall, and stalling is the boring type, but milling is actually interesting.
Well, Chris is here. You can ask him if mill is survive and strong.
Yeah. CwhitTastic, do you think that mill is a viable strategy, or that stall is a viable strategy?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Maybe it's a good thing to explain why we're laughing about this.
I don't know if
because Seaweed is using a deck with Moonstalker who is very, very good at stalling and having good winning conditions. Maybe he wants to save himself.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm nervous to talk a lot about it because I don't want quick match to become really, really annoying.
You don't want your deck to spread like a cancer in the meta.
but yeah, definitely. Millstalker is a viable option in this meta. I will say that you can stall and you can also literally mill them. And I have lots of wins off of like bad Santa kills. It's pretty cool.
Oh boy, I don't want to happen that to me.
So I would just really like it if in the future people who were using strategies like that would have cards that would accelerate that process so that they could win without it taking 60 minutes.
Yeah, that was the whole point of altering Darklaw's ability. And in the end, Darklaw is not as strong as everybody would like, but it was inevitable with his ability and the cards in his card pool.
Annoying to play against.
Yeah, it was annoying. But anyway, new cards are going to be introduced so that he will be playable once again and strong, like many people like.
Right. All right, so that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for being on with us, CwhitTastic. It was a lot of fun having you on for this episode.
Yeah, it was great.
And everybody else, let's take the discussion thread. I'm interested to see what you guys would like to see in the future for new sets in Shadow Era, because I think this is a really interesting topic that people get really excited about, and we have a whole section of the forums dedicated to people putting their card ideas out there. So let's get some discussion started. What sort of concepts and mechanics would you guys like to see? Let's talk about it and have a great time. Until next time, this is the A1 Alliance signing out.